Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you for clicking on another IgniteFire podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification button so you know when the next video drops. And we have our guest today, Jeff Shirrell. Thank you for coming.
What's up, brother? How you doing?
My name's Jacob, and this is IgniteFire. Well, I want to thank you for coming today.
Yes.
Well, you met Jeff on the mountain. It was in Prescott.
That's right.
And it was Take the Mountain Challenge.
That's correct.
You were impressive, I have to say. You were impressive on the mountain. You motivated me. I wasn't feeling very good either.
Really?
No.
I was feeling terrible.
Yeah,
this is a great promo for the Take the Mountain Challenge.
Regardless how you feel,
yeah.
if you feel like crap, just come out and
be inspired by your fellow brothers who are feeling like crap.
Yes. Well, I think there's something to that. If you're with a group of people trying to accomplish something and everyone's in it for a certain goal, regardless of how you feel, what's going on, we all feed off of each other's energy.
Yeah.
And so, we inspired each other.
Yeah. And as a man, you don't want to show weakness.
That's exactly until afterwards when you're by yourself.
Yeah. I literally, when we were getting ready to do that hike, I was like, man, I do not feel good. I'm like, man, I'm probably going to throw up on this thing. This is great. I was like, whatever.
That's how I felt. And then I think we had Griffin with us, and I looked at him. I said, "Hey man, I might be the slowest guy in the group," and he's like, "That's all right. We'll just do it." And I said, "Let's go."
Griffin, the go-getter.
Yeah, he made us run on this. So we went from the fifth group to number one. You said number one.
Oh, easily.
Yeah, we passed everybody up.
Well, it's so funny because in our group, so we get split into teams. Team five alive,
That's
Johnny
right.
Five alive.
That's right.
So if you know, you know. And I was actually pretty happy that we were the last group because I was like, okay, good. We could just relax for a little
That's
bit.
what I was thinking. Great minds think alike, ladies and gentlemen.
A bunch of older dudes that you're like, oh man.
Yes.
I was like, let me stretch a little bit more. Maybe I can.
I ended up hurting my back.
Really?
Yes. I had to go. I had to make an appointment for a chiropractor.
Really?
Yeah.
Because we were carrying you.
That's right. So what happened was I had this gallon tank, and I put it in a cheap backpack just because I thought it was going to get dirty. So I had a good backpack. I could have got.
I didn't know you brought a keg. That's not fair.
Yeah. Had it in my back, and as we're running, it's bouncing on my lower back, and it keeps hitting my lower back. So it was a little bruised by the end of Saturday. Sunday, I kind of felt it a little more. Monday, I came back. I came home, laid down, and it was an old man moment. I had a spasm. I couldn't move. I'm praying. Jesus help me. Jesus help me.
Wait, don't you have the gift of healing? This is the thing that amazed me. You forgot.
It's not in my command, it operates at will, as the Lord wills.
I would have come back over so you could heal me and then get healed in the process.
Yeah. See, then that's good. It always flows through.
See?
But yeah, so I made an appointment. I had to get my back realigned, and I'm feeling better now.
That's good.
Feeling better. Had to rub it
Praise
out.
God.
So Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself. I got to know you a little bit on the mountain. Like I said, you were super encouraging. Your message that you shared was amazing. So let the audience know a little bit about yourself, your background, who you are, and why I think that you're very encouraging.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm just a kid from Indiana, so.
You're from Indiana? See, I'm going to be learning along with you guys today.
So I grew up in South Bend, Indiana. There's a school there. They think they have a really great football team, and they think they're God's gift. They're slightly deceived. So in the 90s, they were very, very good in the 80s and 90s. And the school that I rooted for, Purdue, was very not good.
Oh, okay.
And I was in high school. So if you can imagine how kind and peace, love, joy these people were not, that was my growing up. But I grew up in a tool and die shop family, blue collar, and in a place where you don't have air conditioning. It's humid and hot in the summer. Like, it's hot here in Phoenix, but it's not humid.
Yeah.
And that is some savage work to be doing in a cinder block building. So I learned about working hard, and the plan was always to go to college, right? And so hey, I was a smart kid, which meant, AKA, I'm a nerd. And so, I did well in school, and then I went to college, and my dad would always say, "Don't worry, boys. He's like, you have a job if you ever don't make it, or if you're ever having trouble studying for, it's like, you can come back here and sweep the floors.
You have a safety net.
Yeah, exactly. And clean the toilets. So I was like at the tool and die shop. It's like, all right. So I went off to school, and I happened to be good at math. And we had a family friend who had, was pretty well off on money. And I go, what does, one day we're sitting around stacking wood, and my dad's like, what do you boys want to do when you grow up? And I was like, I don't know. What does Mr. Jarrett do? He's got, quite a bit of money. He's like, it seems like. And he goes, oh, he's an accountant. I go, what do accountants do? And he's like, oh, they're good with math. Like, you're good with math. And so based on this conversation, the premise of money and working hard, hey, I'm going to go and be an accountant. And the funniest part was I was really good in my management class and my leadership classes, and I loved that stuff. And I just grinded through accounting because we don't quit.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Fast forward 15 years later, I've gone to school. I got the good grades. I grinded through. I got out in 4 years. I went into the world. I got a job in accounting. Started to fail at that. Got another job in accounting and auditing. Did okay, then didn't do so well. Got another job. And it's like all of a sudden I'm turning around and it's like, I thought I did everything right and everything is going on. Nothing is really taking off. And I started to ask, kind of that bigger question. It's like, is this really what my life is meant to be? Is this just grind? And one day I remember asking myself, I'm like, do I even like what I do?
Yeah.
And because I had just been raised like, hey, we work hard. Hey, we work hard. Hey, we work hard. And I wasn't raised in a Christian family per se, or that was led by, my dad doesn't know Christ yet. But it was just like work was number one. And I can understand that. And I can understand there's so many families where it's like, we got to put food on the table.
Yeah.
And there's that. But if you're putting work first, your priorities get out of aligned. And so one day I'm sitting there and it's -20 in January in Chicagoland. And this was like the third or fourth time it's -20. And that means the wind chill is like -50.
We don't know about that here in Arizona.
Let me tell you. So be grateful, because I'll take the heat in the pool all day long.
Yeah.
Because when you open your garage to go shovel the extra foot of snow on top of the other feet of snow, and it's -20, and that wind smacks you across the face and drops you.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I still got to shovel this driveway. Oh, and at the end of the driveway is where all the frozen stuff is. That's what they call the heart attack snow, because you're already exhausted and now you got to get through what has been plowed up against your driveway.
Yeah.
I know this sounds great. I know this sounds wonderful, but I started to ask the question. I was like, okay, I've done everything right, but everything is going wrong. I hate this. I don't like this life anymore. I'm working for the biggest bank in the world, and I'm starting to fail again. Career isn't taking off. If I look inside my 5-bedroom house in this, upper suburb of Chicago, my marriage is failing. My kids are miserable. My wife is miserable. And it's like everything's falling apart from the inside. And so I started to ask that question, is this what it's all about, or is there more? What is the purpose of life? What are we really here to do? Or are we just here to grind it out, and then hopefully one day we get to retire and live a few years?
Yeah.
So it's that Mark Twain quote. There's a Mark Twain quote. It says, the 2 greatest days of a person's life are the day that they are born and the day they find out why. Oh. Yeah. So, but as a Christian, I like this revamp of it. The 2 greatest days of a person's life is the day you're reborn, and then the day you find out why.
That is actually pretty good. That's pretty good.
So yeah, I've been in that for a long time of going through and trying to figure that out, because that's not something that's really, I think, taught to you. I never learned it. And
I didn't learn that for sure.
Right.
For sure.
And so what does fulfilling work or purpose look like? Or what do you do when you come across and you realize that I've been living my life the ways of this world, or the way somebody told me, and this isn't working anymore because this isn't for me. So what I do is take it from my own pain and trial and figuring it out, is help others sift through the lies of life that have been told to them or that they've been living, to find out who they truly are, what their real gold is that God has given and put inside of them, and then to go and live that life of purpose, fulfillment, and glory.
So how did you come to your relationship with God? How did that happen?
My wife had asked me if I knew the Lord. I'm like, I went to church, and my mom would take us to church. My grandparents were, my grandfather was a deacon, and my grandmother sung in the choir. And I'm like, we went to church, and we went through.
Okay.
It was a confirmation. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, yeah, but have you ever accepted Christ as your Lord and Savior? I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, I'm like, I do. I don't break any of the commandments. I know. You already know that
I'm a good person.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a good person. And she just starts to bring these questions up, and she's like, no.
Dang.
Have you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't know. And and she's like, that's something you're gonna have to pray about and figure out. And so I thought about it, and I started to kind of understand and study that, right? And so on July 4th, 2011, one morning I woke up and I'm like, I just prayed that salvation prayer.
Oh, okay, okay.
And then it began.
So did you have any miraculous encounters after that?
Nothing like lightning strikes or anything like that, but you can just see as you lean more into the Word. And for me, it's been through trial and tribulation, whether it's a career that is dead end, is just not going anywhere because that's not what you're there to do or what you're here to do, but you keep grinding away at something that isn't for you. How many people fail and do that? Or is it a marriage that's falling apart? Where are you going to lean? Like for me, I realized that I had, in the football terms, to say you outpass your cover, you outrun your coverage.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right. So like, I was having these major problems in life, and nobody in my circle, or my parents or anything, that knew what to do. They're like, all we can do is offer, maybe some financial support or, help you find somebody to talk to. And I think that's when you start to really grow, is when you get beyond your comfort zone, you get beyond your knowledge base and your foundation. And so that's where I really started to find the Lord, because I think that so many people find the Lord when they're in their trenches or when they're in the gutter or when they're in, the broken places, and they don't know where else to turn.
We finally put our pride down.
So or it gets ripped away, right? The shield of pride gets ripped away, and now you're exposed. Like, I
come from a past of addiction, a heavy addiction, and they say, the moment that you've humiliated yourself enough times is what it takes to finally break the last straw to say, okay, Lord, can you help me, please? But it's only through the trial of humiliation after humiliation and the destruction of the pride that we can finally throw down our hands and say, okay, I'll do whatever. Let's do it.
Well, the common statement that I hear, and I was given a talk at Iron Sharpens Iron in Scottsdale. There's a few different chapters now, which is amazing. Which is a men's group. And one of the gentlemen during that talk was commenting, and he kept saying, like, I was trying to do this, and I was doing, and it's like when you start to pick up on when they're saying "I" too many times or "me" too many times, you realize, you can't handle it because you're trying to do it on your own.
Talking about that reminds me, I almost got in a fight at a men's retreat. Yes, at a men's retreat, Christian men's retreat.
You're forgiven.
Yeah, because I was bringing truth to someone that other people were afraid to tell him. And I looked the gentleman in the face and I said, "Look, if no one else will tell you, I'm going to tell you because I care about you." And he was having a difficult time in his marriage, and he just kept complaining about all this stuff that his wife was doing. And he said, "I did this. I've done this. I've done," and he just I. And I remember looking at him and said, "I hear a lot of I's in your statements." And and I said, "I'm going to tell you something that was told to me, and I didn't like it, and so you're probably not going to like it."
Way to frame it well there. Way to go, Jacob.
I said, my counselor actually looked at me and said, "My wife is the way she is because I am the way that I am." And I said, "Your wife is the way she is because you are the way you are." And he blew up. He did. He stood up and was yelling and screaming.
Give you a hug?
Not at that moment. Okay. He wanted to give me a bear hug. I know that. And after he settled down, it was as if the Band-Aid was ripped off. And I said, "Look, we can all sit here and pretend everything's okay. We can all sit here and pat each other on the back and act like most people do when they come together, share their problems, and walk away the same. Or we can all just be quiet and listen to each other complain, or we can actually give input that will change our situations. I said, what do you want? You want us to sit here and listen to you, or do you want us to sit here and tell you the truth? And then everyone opened up at that point and
awesome.
started sharing, and things turned around for that group.
Was that tough for you to do that?
No.
Really?
No.
Did you sense that this could get ugly?
A little bit.
Okay.
Well, when you're talking to other men, you never know. There's always a little sense of danger, when you're sharing something with people that you don't know. When I was a kid, I remember I had a friend that lived down the street, and me and his sister got into this argument. And this guy was like 6'2", and we were really good friends. He's my neighbor.
Yeah. And you're only 6'1", so.
Yeah. Five. Was it 5'11"? Yeah, no. I'm 5'3.5", and so I'm not that big.
Good things come in small packages.
Yeah. And here comes this guy, and I'm thinking, this is my friend. We, me and his sister, we had a disagreement. We argued about something, and she was upset. And here he comes, and I'm thinking, hey, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And the first thing I know, I get a fist to the face.
Oh, he talked with his hands?
He talked with his hands. And so, that happened when I was younger. So I realized, even if you know somebody, there's always, if something happens, you never know how people are going to react to certain situations. Yeah. So it's always wise to kind of be on guard a little bit, especially when you're talking with other men.
Well, I think what was magnificent about what you did was you spoke truth, right? And you got attacked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you've heard the story of this guy that spoke truth and he got attacked. I don't know.
Was that Jesus?
It was. And his name starts with a J too. It's a common theme here today with the J name.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I think you really find where you're at in your walk when you have to speak courageously and you have to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but for me, the challenge now has become, I'll tell the truth, but how can you do it like Christ would, with compassion and kindness? And it's interesting too. So what happened after, you shared that with the guy? Did he come back and accept what you were telling him?
I think he still had a little bit of trouble with it, but other guys around the table started sharing their stories.
Yeah.
And so it didn't seem as if I was just attacking him. He saw that other people were now engaged in the conversation and saying, hey, this is what happened to me, and this is what happened to me, and my wife did this, and this is how I responded, and it wasn't, and it kind of revealed what happened. At the end, he wanted my number, and at the end of the weekend, and
to come beat you up more.
Yeah, wanted to keep in contact. Yeah,
physical contact.
But I tell people now, though, I was just counseling this guy this past weekend, and I said, look, I heard him complaining to other guys, and this has been a constant thing that I've witnessed, and yeah, he's going through a hard time in life. And it's been a long season, many years I've seen this guy. And he came up to me and he wanted to dump the same thing he did on the last guy that he was just talking to. I just saw him sharing the stuff. And I said, listen, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you want me to just listen to you? Do you just want to dump your feelings? Or do you want me to comment and share my thoughts with you? And he looked at me and he paused for a second and he said, I want you to share your thoughts with me.
Nice.
I said, how many times have you shared this with people? And he mentioned it. I said, so I'm going to interrupt you. And so I don't just need to listen to you because you've had enough people listen to you. I'm going to stop you where I think I need to stop you. And I'm going to share what I think I need to share with you. And he said, all right. And it was a tough conversation, I had to, but I knew, he needed to hear some things,
correct.
And so I try to do that with people that I talk to now. Do you want me just to listen or do you want me to share something with you? And so that's what I do now. Because
had anybody shared what you shared with him and in a sense responded in that way?
I don't know, actually.
Okay.
I know that in Christian circles, especially what I've evaluated is that people are always there to comfort each other. But sometimes you don't just need comfort. You need someone to say, hey, stop digging the hole that you're in.
Yeah.
Let me give you a ladder so you can get out of the hole that you're in because you're just getting deeper and deeper. And so that's what I needed in my life. So I just share what I needed in my life. I don't want to just keep circling around the same mountain. I don't want to look back on my life 10 years and it's the same way it was, my emotions, my finances, my marriage, everything is still the same after year after year. I think that's a prison.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because what was going on in your life where you needed it?
What was happening? Oh man, things were being destroyed. So in my life, so I'm 38. My daughter's going to be 22 this coming year. Her son's 18. We're a blended family. And I didn't realize that everything began and ended with my leadership. And I was passive. I didn't take responsibility. I kept shifting blame. Things weren't changing. They were getting worse. And so it was only when I started to become part of a marriage group where other men were displaying how to be a real leader. One time I had this big blowout fight with my wife, and I call one of the guys, and I'm just dumping on this guy. And he said, "Man, that's terrible. You should go in there and love your wife." I said, "You didn't just hear what I said. She's doing this, and I repeat myself over again." And he says, "Man, yeah, it sounds like she's wrong, but you should go in there and hug your wife and pray with her." And I said, "Bro, I don't want to do that." He said, "I know you don't, but you're the leader of your home." And so when people started having those conversations with me, and I got around a different group of guys, things started to change. And then the counselor that we went to go see, he did the same thing. He looked at me and he just kept talking to me. And my wife is right here. We're paying to see this counselor for a marriage counseling, and he's just looking and talking to me. And I'm thinking, dude, we're paying you for
there's another person in this room.
And he looked at me and said, "Are you or are you not the leader of your home?" And then my pride got hit, you know. "Are you or are you not physically stronger than your wife?" And I said, "Yes." He says, "Are your shoulders stronger? Because they should be able to handle more weight than your wife." And he said, "Everything that is placed on your shoulders rolls down and she receives it." And he says, "You're the one that's supposed to take the blunt of of these sessions. She's hearing everything that I'm telling you, and she's being convicted, but you're the one taking the hit."
Yeah.
And he says that's part of marriage.
Yeah.
And so those are some of those conversations that I had. So that's why I share that with others.
How'd you feel about that when?
I didn't like it. I was a little upset, but I understood. Because no one had ever said that to me. No one had ever said that my wife is my mirror, and if I change, she'll change. And I didn't think that was fair. And something that I've come to understand with the dynamics of manhood is it's not fair. We're not, and if you're a lady, don't take this wrong, guys. I'm not necessarily trying to be chauvinistic, but we're not equal. Men and women are not equal.
It says that in this book.
Yeah.
I don't know, but if you've noticed, but we're different than women.
We are different.
I mean, there's some good difference.
It is, and we're made to complement each other, but we're not equal, and there are things that are not fair. I don't expect my wife to go into battle for me. I don't expect my wife to go and fight, other physical dangers for me because she is the weaker vessel. And that may not be fair. But the moment that I accept that reality, then I can step into who I'm supposed to be and understand that it's not fair. I have a role to play and no one else can play my role,
Yeah. And what did that do for you?
It empowered me.
That's right.
It empowered me.
Let's go.
And so this is, and you're a life coach. You're a life coach. So share a little bit about that.
See what we just did there, folks?
Yeah.
Because so the pride went up when you heard it because what got touched on. I'm asking you.
It was touching on a weakness.
Okay, tell me.
Let's see. It was touching on an area that, well, I guess I would say my perspective. And it was changing. I think that's pretty painful, actually, now thinking about it. When we see the world a certain way and we think that is the way it is, and then we come to the realization, we see with our real eyes, and we realize that it's not that way. it's a little bit painful because now we realize that we were wrong.
Deceived.
And the blinders have to come off.
Yeah. And how did you feel about being wrong or under deception?
I didn't like that. I didn't like it. I didn't like that. And then I realized that I was responsible for a lot more things in my life. And then you realize, or I realized that that's where I needed God's forgiveness. And then when I could see my own failures, then I could forsake those things and divorce myself from the thing that I used to be married to and now change it and receive something new.
Yeah. And again, then when you realized that you could receive something new, that helped you feel what?
More empowered.
Right?
Empowered, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Liberated.
And not in this prideful, puffed up mask,
No.
Yeah. And so therefore then you can walk with this greater, sense of what?
Awareness.
Okay.
Awareness. Understanding. And strength. And so with the situations, I realized that that God was now working through me and not resisting me.
You weren't wrestling with God?
I wasn't wrestling with God anymore.
You're allowing God to show up through you?
And then I remember hearing this pastor say, and it finally hit me, he said, God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble.
I like it. And then did your wife respond differently? Amazingly
enough, when I changed, she began to change.
Yeah.
She became a great woman.
She probably was a great woman already.
Yeah. She's amazing. My wife's amazing. But yeah, I had to reevaluate some things.
Yeah, and you know what's wonderful? So kudos to you and thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people need to hear that, especially guys, and because what they need to hear is the truth and what we talked about. And I think this was you on the mountain. Didn't you say this when we during one of the sessions, somebody's talked about, we need to speak the truth to each other. And somebody said something, but the quote that I heard that I liked was, an acquaintance will tell you what you want to hear. A friend will tell you what you need to hear.
Yes.
Oh no, here's what it goes. A friend will tell you what you want to hear. A brother will tell you what you need to hear. And are you going to be a brother that's going to have that challenging conversation in the guise of, I want this person to be better, and I can see that they're walking down a ugly path. And am I going to have the courage to say what needs to be said with the risk of taking a beating, hurting some feelings, but when you speak the truth is already planted and they recognize it. Have they maturely learned to embrace it and accept it and allow that to do a good works in them, or are they still fighting it? So, and that fighting is what?
Resisting.
Yeah. And what causes us to fight the truth? What was it? You said it.
When, the pride?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right. And so, when we learn to, lay down our pride and accept that truth and allow it to do its good works in us, then there we can get better. And it's interesting because, every good coach has a coach. So I did a lot of years with a wonderful marriage and life coach, and she said that you as a husband are like a prism, kind of like that. It was a Pink Floyd album. And as you adjust and turn, the light shines differently through you, and then people respond differently through that. So, but I think that aspect of how can I have less of me and the prideful things of this world, what you said, and more of him shining through me. And also, am I going to be courageous enough to be able to take up the cross and put myself on it for the greater good of others, and be able to, when I get struck, pour out compassion. Can I get to that point? And if I do, things will go much better. I have to trust in the Lord. But there's a power in being able to embrace, kind of embrace the suck or embrace the pain.
Yeah.
And ask the Lord to fill you, right? And say, hey, I'm going to go into battle. I'm going to take this on because it's the right way, and it might get me killed.
Yeah.
It might get me taken out, but you will shine through.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's a super, it's a strength that is next level.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I feel like I've been being coached a little bit here right now, and to go to that. How did you transition from being an accountant and all this stuff was happening to now becoming a life coach and life started to change for you?
Yeah. So it's the same way because I grew up taking cues from, a limited mindset or like conservative, Midwestern mindset. And it's like, oh yeah, it's like we go to school and you get the good job and you work for 40 years and you save and then you can retire. And if you want, you can do something different. Right. And so I'm like, okay, all of these things were being pushed off. And so for me, I just wasn't that courageous, let's go take a risk and let's, throw it to the wind and see how it goes.
More calculated.
Yeah, exactly. And so if change needed to be made, it usually was like very painful. Like I would just like hold on as long as possible, things that weren't for me anymore. And then I would get those ripped away from me. So, same thing with our move from Arizona from the Chicagoland area to here to Phoenix, Arizona, which was a complete blessing. But for me, I was holding on to everything I knew because I was like, oh, I don't know anybody in Phoenix. I have no connections. And it's like the Lord provided. And he had to rip the last thing that was going for me was this great job I had. And he, took it away from me. And he's like, I'm going to need you to trust me. So I'm going to take away the thing that you're holding. Either you submit it or, I'll make you submit it. And it's going to be much more painful, right?
Yes.
So, and so the same situation, like I, came here, had a great job. And then they had brought in some new management. And I had known, I got an inkling, like, it's time to move. It's time to move. And it's like, I don't know if you've had this, but you hear a message and you hear it again and you hear the same thing again. And you're like, okay, this is a repeat. And it's like, take action on this. And it's like, oh, well, I don't know. I need to hear it one more time. Okay, here it is. And it's like, I kept hearing all these messages and I wasn't moving. I wasn't obeying, which to me, I've given a talk on it and call it immediate courageous action, right? And you look in the book of faith, right? Hebrews chapter 11, Abraham obeyed, right? Sarah obeyed, Noah obeyed. And these are scary things, right? And Abraham got up the next day. Hey, son, let's go up the mountain here.
Pulls out.
Yeah, he's not like, oh, Lord, are you serious right now? Because you know how long it took to get this guy here, and now we got to go sacrifice him. And his obedience, which is that he immediately went up the mountain the next day, and took courageous action. Like it takes courage, which is in the face of fear. This person might beat me up. My wife might get angry. My kids might get upset if I hold the line on the truth and guide them in the right ways. And if I do that, there will be fruit on the end, but there might be a beating, there might be some pain, there might be some suffering. However, growth only usually happens when there's some uncomfortability that occurs, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how did you grow all your muscles?
It was uncomfortable.
Right, exactly.
Consistency and putting myself through pain.
Right. And so the same thing in our lives. So the more that we can submit to that and, maybe get some wise counsel around us and people that can help us sort these things out. And oftentimes I'm in conversations where, I don't have anybody else to talk about this with. I'm all alone. There's no one else, especially in what has happened in the world the last few years, is so many people are alone and isolated, and they don't feel like they can talk to anybody else about this stuff. And I know because I was in that spot. I mean, even just Saturday night, I was, wrapping up a workout, getting ready for church. And an old friend reached out to me and said, hey, can I talk to you? I have nobody else to talk to about this situation going on in my life. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Let's sit down and sort through this. And afterwards, because we shined the light on it, because I spoke truth, I reconciled it with the word, had to tell her some things that were maybe uncomfortable. She was able to move forward better and faster, with the things that she'd been wrestling with for so long. So for me, there was new management that came in and it was like, all right, Jeff, you're not paying attention to, stepping fully into this area of expertise that I have crafted you for. I knitted you together to do this. You know this in your heart, but you're too scared to trust me. And so things started going south real fast at this job that had been going really good for a long time. And finally, it was funny, we actually sold our home and moved. And the day after we moved, there was a meeting from HR. And that meeting was to say, your time here is done. And it was so funny.
So they were saying,
So again, it's like, all right, Jeff, we're going to close these doors behind you and kick you through. But it was so funny because I go down and tell my wife, she's like, that's great. You can finally fully step into it. And I'm like, I know. But it was still scary for me. But as I started to lean into it and embrace it, right, accept the truth, that's when the magic and things started to flow much better. And you could just see every day was a blessing. And there's challenges still. I mean, there's still pains, but like just the blessings are abundant, and the impacts that you get to have, like some of the stories we were talking about earlier on people's lives. I mean, you can't put a price tag on that.
No.
And it's like, how can I show up and do more of that every single day as you need and guide, Lord?
Yeah.
How can I do more of what you've gifted me to do, where I feel fulfilled and I have a positive impact serving others and having an impact on others, and seeing the value. Maybe we don't see our value, but others do, and we can get a perspective on that because of the change in their lives, because we help them, with fixing something, or we help them, through a tough time, or we help them unpack something that's difficult in their lives. And what are those topics, and how can we help each other through? Because if we're doing it for the kingdom and guiding them towards truth and encouraging them to keep going, then there's many blessings on their side of the challenge, right?
Oh yeah.
You've seen this before in your life?
I have seen this before.
So you were talking about encouragement on the mountain, and what was it that you were challenged by, and then you were saying, hey, I got encouragement from you or from others.
Well, first off, I want to say when you gave your message, I was just amazed. So this guy, I'm telling you, you were up there, and it was something that just that I could physically see washed over you. And I had mentioned that I saw a lion, that was speaking, and there was this intensity that was protruding from you. That was, the way I'll say it is, if there was a lion in the room, you wouldn't look away because you know that there is danger in the room, but also strength and with a predator, there's also safety. That if you're part of the pack and you're part of that lion tribe, then that's the protector, And so so just kind of a visual. That's what I was seeing. And then the message that you shared with King David, I love King David and the visual rocks that you gave.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of funny, so I drew a little smiley face on one end of my rock, but on the other side, you had mentioned what weapon is this rock for to destroy your giant. And I remember you had mentioned Hebrews, and then the hall of faith, and I wrote on their faith. Yeah, because without faith we can't be saved. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. It's faith that takes the giants down. It's faith that brings the word out. And it's God that gives us the faith in the beginning, but faith moves the mountains.
That's right.
And so I knew that this was my weapon. Yeah. And so I still have my rock in my van. I take it out and I hold it. Yeah. I'm a fiddler, so I'll fiddle with my rock. But the message was amazing. And another thing about King David I love is when the pandemic hit, I remember seeing the sickness in the form of Goliath. And King David was standing there by faith. There was a real threat, at the gate. And he looks, what I could see is King David turning and looking behind him and seeing a whole army hiding in their tents. And the weapons of our warfare are not physical. They're spiritual. And as you're describing the story, that's what I see. We use these stories to help us shape our strength and our faith today. And whether it's a sickness, whether it's cancer, whether it's a marriage, whatever is attacking and destroying, there's going to be a whole group of people that'll hide from the danger that's in front. But I want to be the King David that will stand up with faith and say, no, I serve a God that can destroy this giant, and I'm going to stand in victory and cut its head off. And when you were sharing all that stuff, it just was burning that fire within me. It was igniting the fire.
There you go. Well, think about this, and you know what? Let's go through this, because you kept saying King David. But was he King David at the time?
No, he was a shepherd boy.
That's right. And he came to the front line, right? So so what did he see when he arrived?
He saw the danger, right?
Yeah, and what was the response to danger that he saw?
Oh, I mean, immediately he said something about it. He said, well, who is this uncircumcised Philistine that's cursing our God?
And then when he looked around at this army of men, what did he see in their spirit?
He saw them cowering.
That's right. That's right. Because they had forgotten what?
Who God was.
And what does God say?
He's for us, not against us. He's with us.
The thing that I love is, one of the things that is in that story says, that earth may know that there is a God in Israel, that then all this assembly shall know that the Lord does not save with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give it into our hands. And that is super powerful. He knows. David comes to the front line, and he knows. He's looking around. He's like, what? Have you guys forgotten? They have forgotten. They've been deceived.
Yeah.
They were intimidated by that giant. And one of the things that I know that in our lives, and that what does that giant represent for you? What are you anxious about? What is fearful? What is scaring you? And it's 40 days. Can you imagine? And that was the point that I was making in the beginning was your giant. How long has your giant been intimidating you and growing and getting bigger and bigger? And it's just constant barrage and constant intimidation. And so now this giant who's 6'2", and is speaking, these untruths and these lines, and it's causing you to forget.
Yeah.
Who's behind you and who's fighting the victories for you and who's fighting the battles for you. And that's the way that the enemy keeps us down. He deceives us.
Yeah.
And he holds us in our place, and we think that, oh no, I can never do this, or I can't accomplish that, or it's going to be a complete disaster. But it's not until we remember, and it might be a brother, it might be a real friend that's going to speak truth and is going to get us to mount up, that is going to get us to go towards our giant. And the thing that during that talk that was so powerful is I want people to take something tangible. I want this to be applicable to them, right?
Yeah.
I heard from Mark Driscoll. He said, this is the only book that will read you as you read it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so in your life, what is that giant? Identify it. And then as David did before he goes into battle, remembering who his God is, having that confidence because he's fought other battles. And most likely, you have fought other battles before. Oh, yeah. You may have forgotten because you see this big giant right now. Then going down to the river and finding his 5 smooth stones. And what's amazing there is like the stones were smooth. And what we defeat the enemy with is the rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And those stones were smooth because they were in the living water.
Oh, yeah.
And so he finds the ones that he needed for that battle, and he takes them and he goes towards his giant, charges towards his giant, and slings right between the eyes, like a complete headshot, right? Yes. Sniper shot right between the eyes, and he takes down his giant. And then, just as you said, takes out the sword, decapitates the giant, and claims victory.
Now, so with something that you're saying, and those that are watching, just to bring some more practicality to this, is that David, as the shepherd boy, had fought the lion and he had fought the bear. And he was in active battle before that situation. And how many people that are watching are not confronting the lion of lust, the bear of marriage, children, their work, the animals of lies and deception, drugs, alcohol, addiction, all these different battles that if you do not conquer those battles beforehand, when a real giant comes, we fold.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, and if we're passive in life and we're casual with those things, we become a casualty.
That's right. That's good. Jordan Peterson is quoted saying, "Go into the cave and slay the dragon before it comes out and slays you."
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of the thing is like we know those dragons are there, and are we gonna face them like a man, like a courageous warrior, like a true disciple of God, believing in His commands and decrees and what He says, and go towards it courageously like He would, like He sent His Son, and claim the victory?
Yeah.
Or are we going to fall back and cower away, and and just become a victim of that?
Yeah.
Because we're not here to be victims.
No. And when you pretend that there's no problem there, like you said, that problem continues to grow and to grow and to grow. When I was struggling with drugs and alcohol, I was working, I had a house, I had my car, everything seemed to be financially great, and then until it wasn't, and I remember the circle that I was in, and it was, I'm never going to do this again, and then I'm doing it again, and then I wake up with a strong resolution to never do this again, and then next week I'm doing it again, and it kept getting bigger and bigger. The problem kept growing and growing until the moment that I remember dropping to my knees. And it was the realization. And I say, this is what the first miracle that really happened in my life. I said, God, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And I was using the Bible to justify my addiction. And that's the worst, because I was reading, it says that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So I can just drink this beer because I have self-control. And so I'm going to do this by faith. I'm going to drink this beer and have self-control, and I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Show me that scripture, please, where it says you can drink the beer. Like when you're using scripture to justify. Yeah.
And people do this all the time.
Yeah.
And I had to I realized this is not the truth that I'm using rightly. I'm not dividing the word right. And I said, Lord, I need help. I need this removed. Yeah. I can't self-control this thing.
Yeah.
And so I remember calling and finally throwing the white towel and saying, I need help. Can somebody show me how to do this? And that's when that miracle began to happen. And God completely restored me, but it helped me sharpen smooth out my weapons of warfare so I could sling and hit that giant.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you welcomed in the healing. You welcomed in what was needed to make you stronger. One of the things in my logo, it has a heart, right? Because above all else, guard your heart, for everything we do flows from it, right?
Yeah.
But also be careful, because the heart can be deceitful. So you need to go in and be courageous to go into your heart and actually deal with the things that are going on in there, so that what springs forth is actually in alignment and integral with what is in the word and how we're called to be. If it's not, what's coming out of you, and what's that a leading indicator of what's going on inside of you? And do you have the courage to go into the darkness, into the cave, and actually deal with it? Because if you don't, it will continue to come out and wreak havoc, not only for you, but those that you're supposed to love, that you say you love.
Yeah. You know, I was talking to our co-host Victoria, and we were talking something about that. And I said, picture a warrior with a sword, and if he's keeping lies from his wife, if he's doing things that are deceptive, if he's protecting things that are hidden, he's taking that sword and he's facing it towards his wife and his family. But the moment that he becomes courageous and he reveals those things, gets rid of those things, exposes those things, and says, and lifts that up to the presence of God and says, okay, I'm done with these things. I want my to protect my family. He turns, and it's almost this 180 degree circle where he turns, and now he's facing the enemy, protecting his family.
That's right, a real hero.
Yes, and you can't hold any of that junk. I remember in the rooms of recovery, they say you're like a trash can that has a bunch of junk in there. There's some good things in there, but there's a lot of junk. If you're not courageous enough to examine the junk and get rid and dispose of the things that are festering inside of you, then when you won't be able to fill it with more good things.
That's right.
And you need to overflow with the good things.
Right.
And because it's the poison that's really the problem.
Yeah, and it's killing you and everybody else.
Yes.
And that makes a great point, because it's not until we actually have that courage to go inside and do that work. And it's interesting, there's the old adage is, what's the scariest, what do people fear the most? What activity?
I don't know.
What did I do when I was up at the mountain?
Oh, public speaking?
That's right. So there was another study done, which I found fascinating, and they gave people the choice, because the quote is, most people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. So right? So there was a study that was done I found fascinating, and it said people were given the choice. You could either give a speech publicly, the thing that most people are more scared of than death, or you have to sit in a room alone by yourself with no distractions for an hour. 60 to 70% of the men would rather speak publicly than sit alone with their own thoughts in a room. Right. And it's not until we have the courage to go in and expose what is going on inside of us, to somebody trusted or somebody that we can share this with, that we can really become stronger and heal those things and be better, because the devil will just hold you back and keep you through shame.
Yeah.
Thinking, whatever somebody said to you or you were told, which is out of alignment with what this word says about you.
Yeah.
And it will just continue to run your life and run you until you have the courage to expose it to the light and to, trusted wise counsel.
So it just reminded me when you were saying that. So part of my process, I went through the 12 steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a part in the 4th step where you get rid of all this junk. And then you have to confess these things to someone else, right? And I remember I was thinking to myself, I don't want to share this with anybody. Like, this is some horrible things. And so I thought, who could I share this with that I don't know, that I'll never see again, and that has to take it to the grave? I was like, oh, there's a Catholic church up the street. I'm going to go to confession. I'm not a Catholic, by the way. So I go in there and I get in the line and I come in and I'm thinking there's going to be a wall. I'm not going to see the guy. He's sitting right across the way from me, just like we're looking at each other. And I'm like, I got to look at this guy. God did this on purpose. I have to look at this guy in his eyes. And I said, hey, I'm part of the, the AA program. And I goes, oh yeah, we have groups here. I said, well, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing my 6th step or my 5th step and confessing these things. And he goes, absolutely, I understand. And I said, I'm not a Catholic, so I'm just doing this. And he goes, go ahead, do what you need to do. So I'm looking at him, I'm sharing all this stuff, and he's just sitting there staring at me. And finally I get through and he says, do you believe that God's changing you? I said, yeah, I do. And he said, well, it's a good thing you got rid of that stuff. And then he was actually really, really awesome to talk to. He's talked about the forgiveness process and all this stuff. And I walked out and I remember it felt like as if a weight fell off of me. Yeah. And in the AA book, it's interesting. It says, once you've completed this confession, it says you can go to an isolated place where you can be alone for at least an hour. And it says you'll realize you can be at perfect peace in his presence. Now thank him for what he's done for you. Yeah. And and kind of like you're saying, most people don't want to be alone with themselves because there's that stuff that's festering.
Yeah, they don't know how to fight their giants and their dragons alone because you're not supposed to fight them alone.
No.
And how did you feel after that, after you went to battle?
Oh my gosh, it felt wonderful. It felt I felt the peace of God. I felt clarity, joy, understanding. I understood the forgiveness process. I wasn't so angry with other people because I had exposed some of the worst things in my life and knew I'd received forgiveness. So how could I not forgive others for the things that they've done? They were just as sick as I was.
You knew
they have the same junk.
Yeah, you knew they were wrestling with ugly things
and
too.
They still have it. They're still holding on to it. So then it turns into this, you feel pity for someone else that still holds on to all that junk.
Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing.
Exactly.
Did you sleep better that night?
Oh yeah. Slept like a baby.
Well, we laugh, but that's the sad part is that's when the devil comes and does his worst work. And people just don't sleep with peace until they finally courageously share that stuff and get it out in the open. And the weight and the change that occurs on a regular basis that I get to be present for because the Lord's like, it's time to go, son. Go full time. And is amazing. And watching that transformation occur in people's hearts and their souls and their spirits, and then the ripple effect that has throughout all the other areas of their life is transformative. So the harvest is plenty and the workers are few.
Yes. So how long have you been coaching now?
Yep. So that was the funniest part in the beginning when I started to be like, well, okay, I don't like this. I'm good, but I'm not great at this. It gives me no fulfillment. But I think I like this stuff. And I'm like, these are like on opposite sides of the spectrum. Accounting and numbers, and then feelings and emotions, right? So I started to lean into it, and that was about, I'd say, like 8 or 9 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so I just started doing it, kind of like leaning into it courageously, and seeing this transformation start to occur with people that God brought in front of me. And I'm like, this is amazing. And then as well as the other aspect is, like when I saw my first TED Talk, and I watched people in 20 minutes, like just bring this amazing message, and I'm like, how can I do that?
Yeah.
So in a sense, most people would be like, I would never want to speak on stage. I'm like, how can I do that?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Was this great encouragement to not only can I do this on a one-on-one or in a group format, in a small group format, but how can I bring these messages to the world and share this with, whoever's in the room? And then as well as how do you do it where not only is it like transform, do you feel good, like you go to a church service, and hey, like I feel great, but then I'm in traffic and, at the line at Kentucky Fried Chicken, yelling at everybody and yelling at my kids because they're hungry and angry, and so-and-so took so-and-so's fries and the other one spilled their drink. Now I've forgotten about it. So how can I take things and make them so that they, that they're permanent and active, and they go forth with the person, kind of like what you guys experienced when you were on the mountain. You have these rocks. And it's like, hey, this is something tangible. You're going to take this with you. And how do we continue to make this change permanent so that you go forth stronger? Yeah. And then as well as your testimony, you can tell others about this. You can tell them the good news and help to free them from the captives that are holding them back.
Yeah, yeah. So guys, I want to get your information out to anyone that's watching. Absolutely. So how do they get a hold of you? How do they get connected? Yep. Is there a website?
Yes. Okay. So you can find me on my ministry is called yourstorytoglory.com.
Okay.
So it's our stories that we get to tell that connect with people. And then once they're a story that brings glory to the Lord, they're the best stories. So it's your story to glory. And it's your story that will connect with others. Because notice how many times he's put you in the room and put people in front of you where it's your testimony, and you're the one that corrects it. Like, man, me too. How can I get help? Because I'm wrestling with this too. Yeah, yeah. I'm suffering. So that my family is suffering. And it's your testimony that helps them through it. So you can find me at yourstorytoglory.com or on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn at Jeff Shirrell.
Okay. And then I'll have a link in the description below. So the guys just click the description, and there'll be a link down there. Yeah. So I know we're coming up on an hour. So that went pretty quick, actually.
Time flies. I know. I love it.
Let me ask you a question, because I know I'll ask guys this that I really like that are on the show. I love you, by the way. You got to come back on.
I love it. Yes,
we got to do a little series. My question to you is: there is a debate between men and women right now, and the lines are being blurred by society.
Just one debate? I mean, I don't know.
There's a lot of things.
You're married. You know what's up.
But what is a man? In your opinion, I know there's body parts, genetics, all that. But in your opinion, what is a man?
Somebody that is courageously opening themselves up and looking deeply into the Word and Jesus Christ and saying, how can I do what he did? And saying, expose my heart, Lord. Where am I not walking it out? Where am I not like him? And come in and show me that so that I can embrace it and bring to me those who will help me heal that, so that for those that I love and for the mission and the purpose that I'm here for, that I would have the courage and the love and the strength to hang on a cross if need be, to be betrayed, to be ridiculed, to be beaten, for this righteous purpose, in order for your glory and your message to be shared through me and through my life, and for that life to be given for others and for the saving of their lives.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, Jeff, for being on the show, for coming on. I'd love to have you back so we can do another session. And for those who are watching, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification, put some messages down below in the description. Let us know if you have any questions, any thoughts, and what you're thinking about. And if you enjoyed this show, we really appreciate your guys' interaction. So thank you guys for watching. We love you. Till next time, God loves you, and God bless.
Thank you.